Kathy Griffin made headlines this week after she posted a rather tasteless picture of herself holding a decapitated head that appeared to look like Donald Trump. Now, she got justifiable backlash as a result of that, justified backlash as a result of that, and she ended up apologizing, and people on the left and right were criticizing her. We criticized her. We thought the image was in poor taste, was a really bad idea, and that type of violent imagery has no place in our society. And while we were covering that story, I said, look, it's different when private citizens do it, which I know that private citizens did some pretty horrendous stuff in regard to President Obama. And it's different when a public figure does it. You're held to a higher standard. You have certain responsibilities. And I said, to my knowledge, we didn't have public figures on the right doing any type of violent imagery in regard to Obama. I was wrong. I forgot about someone because I guess I just block him from my memory because he grosses me out. Ted Nugent. Okay. So Ted Nugent, not on one occasion, but on several occasions, made threatening statements in regard to President Obama and also Hillary Clinton. So let me give you some examples. In the lead up to the 2012 presidential election, Ted Nugent made comments at an NRA meeting in St. Louis that led to an investigation by the Secret Service. He said, we need to ride into the battlefield and chop their and Obama administration's heads off in November. Okay.
So when he's referring to the Obama administration when he says chop their heads off. Now, okay, Secret Service has to look into that. What I love about that is how analogous it is to Kathy Griffin. And of course, you could argue worse. Now, I went off on Kathy Griffin because I hated that image and I wouldn't want it done to Obama, Hillary Clinton, or Bernie Sanders, anybody, right? It's not the right thing to do. But when someone says no, and let's actually go do it, and Ted Nugent isn't joking. I mean, maybe he's using a metaphor, in which case you'd really, really want to be a little bit clear about that. But as you see the context of his other quotes, you realize it's not a metaphor. He is constantly threatening actual violence against political leaders. And he is celebrated in the right, including by Donald Trump. Again, we'll get to that in a second. But it's one thing for Kathy Griffin as a joke to show Trump's severed head. It's another thing for Nugent to tell a bunch of crazed right-wingers, let's go actually do it and chop their heads off.
In 2012, he was also quoted as saying, if Barack Obama becomes the next president in November, again, I will either be dead or in jail by this time next year.
So, this is Ted Nugent talking tough as usual. I don't know if that implied that, I guess he was implying that Obama was gonna come get him because Ted Nugent is such an important political figure and he needed to imprison him, or that he was gonna do something violent against Obama and hence would be imprisoned. But remember, Ted Nugent loves to talk tough because he's actually a giant coward. Hey, anybody remember how he got out of the Vietnam War? Oh, right, he crapped himself and he stewed in his own feces for a week and then showed up and pretended to be crazy, and they said, okay, you're gonna get a deferment out of Vietnam. This is a story Ted Nugent told, okay? Later, after people said, that makes you look like the worst person on earth. Many years later, he's like, okay, I retracted, I guess. He thought he was clever. He's like, I'm a coward, I don't wanna fight when my life's actually in danger, so I will crap myself. That's who Ted Nugent is. So now, since he's so deeply insecure about that, he has spent decades trying to make it up with, oh yeah, I got a machine gun, oh yeah, I'm gonna kill everybody, I'm gonna chop their heads off. Hey brother, you had a chance, you did, instead you crapped yourself. So, but anyway, it gets worse.
There's more. He would go on to say other things too, like a joke about assassinating Harry Reid and that Obama and Hillary Clinton should be tried for treason and hung. By the way, it's hanged, that's the proper grammar, but nonetheless. Let's go to graphic 8, because there's more. He was quoted as saying, Obama, he's a piece of shit. I told him to suck on my machine gun.
See, for some reason, that's the one that I think puts me over the top. Because you can say, hey, let's, we're gonna kick their ass, we're gonna kill them, we're gonna light them up, I don't know, we're gonna destroy them, eviscerate them. These are things that could be political metaphors. I'm not gonna get all worked up over that, right? But he keeps constantly talking about actually assassinating people and hanging them, etc. And so when he says, suck on my machine gun, there's no political analogy where you suck on a machine gun, right? That's not a thing, that's not a saying, it's not in the English language. That means I would like to put a machine gun in your mouth and pull the trigger. Now, do we think Ted Nugent's gonna do it? I hope not, right? So.
Just like we don't think Kathy Griffin is gonna decapitate Donald Trump's head, right? And by the way, for the billionth time, I'm not making excuses for Kathy Griffin. I did not agree with that image. I thought it was a terrible idea, and I'm glad she apologized. But now, looking back looking back at it on retrospect, it just, the theme continues. This theme of Republicans do something, Democrats criticize them a little bit, and then we all move on. A liberal does something, and everyone loses it, right? And then that person apologizes, the apology isn't enough, you gotta fire her, you gotta do this, you gotta do that, Anderson Cooper's gotta throw her under the bus, you gotta destroy her life. It's just this weird double standard, and it makes me so incredibly angry. And even though I agree that she should have apologized, this kind of stuff makes me not ever want to apologize, even if there's wrongdoing, because for what? For what? They never get the same treatment. Here's another statement from Ted Nugent. Hey, Hillary, you might want to ride one of these into the sunset, you worthless bitch. He had his gun when he said that, right? And so he is not, like, it wasn't one thing that he said. It wasn't two things that he said. This is a constant theme in his rhetoric. And he gets a little bit of pushback from people on the left. But you think Republicans are speaking out against him? No, in fact, quite the opposite. Donald Trump invited him and other deplorables to the White House after he got elected. And in 2012, when all of this drama with Nugent went down, Trump took it upon himself to tweet, because that's pretty much the only thing he knows how to do, and defend Ted Nugent. He says, Ted Nugent was obviously using a figure of speech. Unfortunate as it was, it just shows the anger people have toward Barack Obama. Well, did you feel the same way about Kathy Griffin and the anger that she might feel toward you? Not so much. In regard to Kathy Griffin, he said that she should be ashamed of herself. My children, especially my 11-year-old son Barron, are having a hard time with this. Sick.
How about when Ted Nugent said that Obama should suck out his machine gun and should be decapitated? He had children, he had young children just like you do now. Weren't they scarred by it?
Well, they don't matter.
So could you imagine if a Democratic politician came out and said, it was a little tasteless what Kathy Griffin did, but you can understand her anger at Trump, so what are you gonna do? Makes sense. People are so angry at Trump, yeah. And then they invited her over to their office. He invited Ted Nugent, after all of this, after all of it, to the White House. So they have no morality. They claim to be part of the, the moral crusaders that said, oh, it's Donald Trump. He grabs people by the genitals and he thinks he can get away with it because he's a celebrity. He ripped people off on Trump University. You know what he is. So of course he hangs out with a scumbag like Ted Nugent, one of the worst guys in the country. And then they go and take pictures making fun of Hillary Clinton in the White House. I mean, and they talked about Bill Clinton defiling the White House. Here's a guy who crapped himself so that he could get away from Vietnam while other people died in Vietnam. That's who you invited over, Ted Nugent? Because that's what right-wingers are. They're hypocrites. They're giant hypocrites.
Which is why my advice for those on the left is avoid inciting violence, avoid doing something stupid like what Kathy Griffin did. But if you are aggressive and you do speak out and you do fight back against the right wing, don't ever apologize for it, okay? You might use language that's unsavory in an establishment political setting. Who cares? I'm done apologizing. I'm done. You call these people deplorables, don't take that comment back. That's what they are, they're deplorable. If they don't like it, maybe they should change their behavior. If you shit in your pants constantly just to avoid a draft, you're deplorable. You shit your pants and you sat stewing in your own shit for weeks. You're disgusting.
To be fair to Ted Nugent, I think it was only a week. Can you imagine sitting in your own filth for a week because you're that scared? So whatever progressives might say going forward, it can't possibly be as filthy as Ted Nugent's pants. I know what you're thinking, Cenk, what do I get if I'm a Young Turks member? Well, I'm glad you asked. Not only do you get the whole 2-hour show on demand anytime you want, ad-free, but you get 6 podcasts on top. What are they? Join up, find out, they're amazing. You're gonna love these shows. TYTnetwork.com/join.